afternoon and a happy May the 6th. We are starting to get closer and closer and closer to summertime, and on the what I believe is the warmest day of the year in the Seattle area, for those who are watching this at distance, a robust 77 degrees today, and it feels a lot like summer is drawing closer. And I am looking forward to this conversation today on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio Juan Cotto, touching bases with you to discuss the issues that are impacting high school athletics throughout the state of Washington. And we do this with none other than the executive director of the WIAA, Mick Hoffman. Mick, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Just enjoying the beautiful weather and looking forward to all of the fruits that spring brings to us. Attended a high school track meet this weekend, Mick Hoffman. I was up at Shoreline Stadium, got to see some outstanding performances. And I tell you, it's interesting. I talked with Tony B about maybe doing a track meet one time on Rainier Avenue Radio. It is one of the most attended events I've ever seen. There is that whole stadium is completely packed up there, and how much fun is that? And the volunteers and the coaches and the kids, those meets are so well run, Mick. It was a lot of fun Saturday.
Yeah, no, it's a great example, really, what the WIA is. I mean, the amount of volunteers that volunteer to help at those, to get kids to the right spot, be time efficient, get you out of there before 9:00 at night, and let a few hundred kids compete. That's what WIA is about. So yeah, that's great. That Clemente competing.
Clemente Cotto is competing in the 400-meter run, and Mick, I don't think I could run 400 meters anymore.
Not like that.
That is a brutal. I was more of a 100, 200-meter guy. That is a brutal race, and but just once again, he loves it and really loves the challenge of it. A number of wonderful performances by all of the kids this weekend from a variety of different schools. And you touched on it just in regards to the volunteers. It's amazing that you can get the boys divisions and the girls divisions all done so quickly and so efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, there's some experts out there running track meets. It's pretty incredible to watch that. You know, people have no idea what it takes to run a track meet unless you've actually done it or experienced it. And the people who are good at it, they're gold.
Well, Mick, thank you so much for being here today. And we are going to talk about another issue that creeps up in regards to how we look at sports. Seldom do we talk about specific performances on the athletic field. In this show, we cover issues and areas that we believe are topics that really kind of go behind the scenes in athletics, in high school athletics in particular. And one of those is the booster clubs. Okay. And we're going to talk about the booster clubs' equity, their role in shaping high school athletics, and the purpose. And I just want to talk with you, and if from a historical perspective, how have booster clubs evolved over the years, especially with the increasing costs of running high school sports programs? How did schools agree upon to come up with this plan to have folks outside the program help them raise a little money?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's a great way to get parents involved in alumni and keep that sense of community. And I think that's an undervalued part of a booster club, even if they're not raising, large funds. People are personally connected to your school. There's an emotional attachment. And again, you could utilize them to come out and help pull a tape for a long jump, or help them raise $100,000 at an auction, depending on needs and wants at that school. So I think it's a natural evolution of people wanting to help out, be helpful, support their students, support their school.
Share some of the examples of how booster clubs have successfully supported not just the varsity sports and not just football teams, which everyone seems to kind of equate the booster club to, but also the entire athletic departments, girls sports, not the most visible sports, cross country and some of the other ones, and even some of the underserved teams at a school.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You start looking at some of that timing equipment used at track meets. Again, stuff can last you a few years. It's tens of thousands of dollars potentially. Pole vault mat, $25,000, $30,000. You look at wrestling mats. You're talking, even with the new style, you're talking $20,000, $30,000 for wrestling mats. Those are big ticket items for schools. That those mats can be used for cheerleading. They can be used for dance when they're practicing their stunting. And then, of course, they can be used for wrestling, boys and girls during the season. So when you're looking at big ticket items, especially with schools and some of the financial situations that they're running into, booster clubs are more important now than ever.
Let me add. I just wanted to go back on something you said. So when I'm sitting there watching a wide world of sports, and I see the guy with the pole vault up, go over the pole, and land in that pit, that's a $25,000 apparatus.
Yeah, that's probably a cheap one. Yeah, and then you need to have a way to cover and protect it. So you're looking at a few thousand more dollars. It's not like the old school ones we had 35 years ago. The requirements for safety, because safety's been enhanced. I mean, you got kids going 10, 11, 12, 13 feet in the air on a pole and learning, they're going to land. So the mats have gotten a lot larger. They wrap around the entire runway now. And so, the quality of them has gotten better. But, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars for that kind of equipment. So it goes way beyond buying football helmets.
What is the responsibility of the schools themselves? Is there an athletic budget that they look at that puts together the initial cost for some of that? Then do they reach out to a booster club member, or do they depend upon the booster club member and say, hey, look, here's our expenses for the year. Can you go out and find us the funds for a mat?
Yeah, it varies greatly from school to school. I mean, I'll give you examples where I come from. Southwest Washington, Prairie High School in Battleground School District had double levy failure, and their booster club would raise $100,000 a year through auctions and other ways and fund their athletic programs. My alma mater, Hudson's Bay, we had a tough time getting a booster club off the ground. We'd have 5-6 loyal parents that would do what they could to try to help out. And then former staff got together and started recruiting other alumni. And, they were helping fund the clubs. They needed to get equipment costs related to the play or the school musical. And so it really depends from school to school. Anything a booster club brings to the table allows the school to spend their money on others. We're not talking for profits. So the money's going to be spent on student programming. It just allows it, maybe instead of getting new uniforms every 4 years, they get them every 3 years if a booster club's helping out. Maybe instead of replacing the volleyball net, and trying to tape that thing together those last couple of years, they're able to replace it a little sooner. Maybe a team gets to travel. Maybe a track team gets to go to Oregon, Southern Oregon, and do an overnight stay. When you bring 150 kids, that's a lot of hotel rooms. And so maybe it's an enhanced experience like that. Maybe it's something, outside of sports the team gets to do. So it really varies widely from school to school.
How does a booster club structure itself? Is it a 501c3 operation outside of the school? And what are the safeguards if someone, if Juan Cotto just comes up? I'm Juan Cotto from Mick Hoffman High School. What is the structure to make sure that's an investment that gets tracked?
Yeah, that's a good word. How should they? Because they don't all do this. And there's actually a nonprofit group out there, Washington State Booster Club Association. They have a phenomenal website. Steve runs that. And they have the what and the how-tos. And honestly, when I saw the topic for the show, I went back to their website to review it to make sure I had it in order. Because we're governing the sports, we don't run it. But I was very intimate with booster clubs when I was a school guy. So the first question, yes, they should go out and become a 501c3. And then the other piece that's really important is that they have insurance. So you have kids out there doing fundraising, in the spirit of helping out the school, and they get hurt. Who are they coming after? Well, they're going after the booster club, because most public schools at least have very strict policies around what booster clubs can and can't do, right? It impacts ASB, impacts general fund. There's a lot of liability with that. If a student would go out on a fundraising event, not for the ASB, but for a booster club, which technically they're not supposed to do, that's supposed to be parent driven, but say somebody gets hurt, that they're going to come back after that booster club board, right? If there's any type of financial penalty or that, and you better have good insurance. And what we see too often, and sometimes coaches fall in this same category, when they want to run a camp, they get online, they find, cheap insurance. Well, the problem is that insurance might only be around a year or two. That claim may not come in for 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden you don't have any insurance coverage. And so by aligning with a group like the Washington State Booster Club Association, well-intended, hardworking volunteer parents and other community members can get protected. So 501c3, making sure you have good insurance, making sure you have good accounting practices, business practices. We hear that you see every year, you're going to see a story in the paper, stolen from the Little League, stolen from the booster club out of school, we're talking $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 sometimes. And people who've been doing it for 15 years that are pillars of the community, and all of a sudden they get in a jam personally or a family member, and all of a sudden money's gone and kids lose out and everything else that comes with it. So that's where the Washington State Booster Club Association is it's a huge asset. He just reached out to me to try to get connected with schools. We refer everybody to him.
And that is the Washington Booster Club Association. You say that's a volunteer organization and a 501c3.
Correct. Yep. And again, they're on it, and they will walk people through the process. They ask them to join as a member. It's not, I don't know how much it is. I got their website up here. I'm trying to cheat as I talk. I don't know. It's very inexpensive, and he goes out and gets grant funding to be able to support the work that goes and does it. But it is one of the purest grassroots groups that I've run into in my 6 years in this job.
The booster clubs themselves. So at a given high school, let's say, and I throw out the example of Juan Cotto at Mick Hoffman High School. If the gymnastics team wanted to start their own booster club, if the wrestling team wanted to start their own booster club, if the basketball team wanted to start their own booster club, is that something that can happen, or generally is there just one booster club for all of the sports at an entire school?
Yeah, it can happen. It really depends on the school policy of how they want to set it up. What you have to be careful. So ideally, most of them try to have a general booster club program and then subgroups within there, right? And so, and how they structure that is up to the school. But what you have to be careful of is, say your fast pitch booster club goes out there and raises $150,000 for a big scoreboard, LED, XYZ, and the boys baseball team, they're not hustling, they're not working. Well, the schools, public schools, are obligated to provide comparable equipment, experience for both genders, regardless of where the money comes from. So if a school district allows a booster club to go out there and go crazy, but they're only supporting one gender or the other, the school district's then on the hook to support that other gender directly. And so, that's where the spirit of hard work has to be a shared effort. So by having those groups working together under one umbrella and then going out doing their thing specific to their sport has to be monitored.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I'm Juan Cotto. I am a radio host and personality here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio World, where we bring stories of our kids through athletics. We bring world music. We bring, yes, that's right. We bring politics to the forefront on a variety of different shows here, community activities, whatever you like to listen to, you can probably hear it here and more on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio World. Mick, when do things start to come to your attention? What level of oversight do the school districts or the WIAA have? And you mentioned finances, and that's really when things can tend to go cattywampus. what are the rules that, and what are the levels of oversight that the WIAA has over booster clubs' activities and finances?
Okay, my first question is, where's the cat? Because you used the term cattywampus. And where does that term come from? That's what I got to know.
Stripes is sitting right down here, and she's looking for a spot to jump on the desk. And if people are watching this, that's why I have to clear a spot for her to leap up here. She'll probably be up here looking for her nap place very soon.
Yeah, WIA has very little oversight over this part of it. So Title IX by law is the responsibility of OSPI for the public schools. And schools that accept federal money are obligated to Title IX. So there's an assumption that a lot of private schools are not, but quite a few of them actually receive federal funding in a variety of ways. We've learned that through this transgender discussion that's going on, the threat of holding funds either from the state or the feds. And actually, I was surprised to learn a lot of our private schools actually receive federal funding for a variety of things, mostly around food and those kind of direct services to students. So for us, we don't really get involved. We try to connect our schools with Title IX training through OSPI and make them aware. Also on the NFHS Learn platform, there's some free training on there that school personnel can access. So, and we just try to, and the other one we do is we try to direct people to the Washington State Business or Booster Club Association to be able to get them some good training resources. So we don't have experts in this area in our office.
But does sometimes the issues elevate to your office, or are you guys really good at kind of saying, "Hey, we're gonna get that back down to the district level"?
Oh yeah, when people are mad, they come at us trying to get people in trouble, whether it's a coach, a school, superintendent, a parent on another one, and then we'll redirect that traffic to where it goes. And my working practice, and we've adopted this as an entire staff, is whenever we receive concerns, we share it with all concerned parties. So somebody's not going to send us something and we're going to sit on it, whether it seems far-fetched or realistic concern. We're sending it to the schools involved, because if people are taking the time to make us aware of it, we want to make sure the people who can actually help resolve their issue know about it and can. And that's actually served us pretty well.
Right, and like you said, when people get mad, they tend to go straight to the top. In this household, Clemente was upset the other day, and I told him, you have to wait in line, my friend. Wait in line. What mechanisms are in place to prevent conflicts of interest or favoritism when booster clubs support specific teams or athletes disproportionately?
There's federal law on that, right, with Title IX. And so Title IX is very clear. And what some people don't understand with Title IX is there's a few ways schools can be in compliance. And one of them is that, you have proportional number of athletes compared to your student body. Other than O'Day, like most typical public schools are 52% one gender or another, which means their participant rate needs to reflect that. That's pretty tough, right? For whatever reason, we don't get as many females. With flag football and some other ones, we're trying to push that. The other way schools can do that is by surveying their students. So they're supposed to do a survey every 3 years. A lot of places will do it every year. And they find out what are kids interested in. And if you have underrepresentation and participation, which is typically on the female side at the high school level, believe it or not, the middle school, we usually have more girl participation than boy participation. But anyway, if you do the survey and there's interest in certain sports, then you need to pursue offering that for the underrepresented sex in your school. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But the other one is what you're investing in. And so, like I said earlier, it's boy sports to girl sports. It's not necessarily just baseball to fast pitch or boys basketball to girls basketball, though, you should have the same number of coaches, same number of kids, allow the same kind of travel for each of those. But it's an overall programming for boy sports and girl sports.
I'm going to take a question that I had for the second half of the show, but I want to bring it forward as you kind of touched on the different varieties that we're looking at. And I'm sure that our guests are probably thinking, a question that I'm probably asking this for them right now as we speak. The NIL situation in high school athletics, and certainly at the college level, it has become a variety of different adjectives come to mind: unyieldy, unruly, the wild west, so to speak, as they're still continuing to try to figure out. And I've heard luminaries such as Nick Saban and a variety of different coaches, Tony Bennett, former coach at the University of Virginia, they just had to get out of it. There's just too much for them to try to manage on top of building a successful program. At the high school level, I assume that this is probably starting to get down into the nitty gritty, and I'm wondering, what does the WIAA have in place, and what types of mechanisms to support, or also to work to develop an equitable situation around the NIL and some of these different more modern things that kids are doing?
Yeah, for us, our rule didn't change with NIL coming out. Our students have always been allowed to work, essentially, right? So, and if you look at NIL as a job, because they're either advertising a product or influencing, making money off that. Our rule just says it can't be using your school or school name. So you can't be in your uniform. You can't be referring to your school. It's your name, image, and likeness, not your involvement with your school's name, image, and likeness. As far as monitoring that, we don't monitor that. We're only made aware if somebody believes somebody has violated. So the WI is much, much different than the NCAA, and that's what a lot of people understand. And in situations like this, okay, we're not in the midst of it. What we do is we try to help our schools know who the resources are to work directly with their athletes to educate them, because if a kid's making decent money on that, they got to pay taxes. They got to make sure they keep their NCAA eligibility and all those kinds of things. We have a rule that a student can't make more than $500. So a golfer per se can't make over $500 in either gifts given. Basketball player gets invited to a camp, they can't be given over $500 in shoes, shirts, bags, what have you, or they lose their amateur standing. So that's the extent of our authority with that. Other than that, if a student can make 10 grand pitching T-Mobile as an individual, good for them, right? Like, that's their thing. We had students in some political ads people were upset about if they got paid, or whether if they got paid and they were in uniform, then that was one thing. If they're an individual student, great. We had one it was a controversial ad, and around some of these culture wars we're seeing, and the athlete had a sweatshirt on related to their wrestling program, but it was club wrestling. It's not our place, right? That's the student. So we're not getting into people's day-to-day business that way. By rule, we're not allowed to. And even if we had a rule like that, it probably wouldn't hold up in a challenge. So for schools, unless the money's going through a booster club, I would guess they're probably in a similar situation. Again, they're not getting paid for their performance. They're getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. So.
What at one time I guess was a very, very simple world, in the last half decade has become far more complex. At least it seems that way, doesn't it?
Very much so. And our young people are trying to navigate it and take advantage of it where they can. And heck, when we were kids, we were hustling, making money, right? So I remember my son, he's turning 30 this year, my youngest, that's how old I am. And he was playing video games all the time when he graduated from college. And I'm like, hey, kid, time you go get a job. Yeah. And he said, I got a job. He was getting paid to play video games, right? Because of the Twitch, and they have subscribers. And I'm like, well, how much are you making? And he had 3 $100 monthly subscribers paying. I said, great, your rent's $400. How are you making up the difference? So, that it's a different world than what we grew up in. So we have to remain flexible and really kind of, what's the core intent? The core intent is that, one, students aren't being taken advantage of, and two, they're not gaining an advantage in some way by doing it. But we also don't want to take away their opportunities.
Well, it's a different world than what we grew up in, but I tell you, it seems like the lessons from dad are all still the same if you have a good dad in the house, because My dad had some ideas for me to go out and make a little bit of money, and said you need to be working, and you need to be working now, and if you're going to stay here a little bit longer. So I certainly get it. Booster clubs can lead to disparities between schools with strong fundraising capacity and those without. How does the WIAA even attempt to address or monitor this issue?
Yeah, I mean, we have that issue regardless of booster clubs, right? I mean, there's certain schools where they can pay for their kids to go to camp. They write a check and off they go. Where other kids are scrambling just to have a pair of shoes to play in or cleats. So, the way we do it is what we think we've done is in our classification system. We've identified schools with, high economic challenges and give them the opportunity to play smaller size schools. And the reason isn't that because kids in poverty can't compete. It's just they got a lot of other stuff going on in their life. And in addition to that, they're way more transient because of the challenges they face in their day-to-day world. And so, instead of having a group of 12 basketball players grow up, young girls from the age of 3rd grade to 9th grade playing together, those 12 girls, you might only have 2 that have been able to stay in their home or their housing or mom, dad didn't get a job and move somewhere else to a better work. And so, it makes it a different level of competition. So we've tried to do it through our classification process. We don't have we have good data, but it's hard to, you can manipulate that data, but we sure have some great stories. One of my favorite schools in the world, Fort Vancouver High School, made the playoffs this year down there in a couple sports. Mm-hmm. And, that's a school that sees a lot of kids come and go during the year. And for those students to be able to compete, to get into some type of playoff because of their reclassification is exciting to see. Those kids deserve that opportunity to go to state like anybody else if they put in the work and compete hard. So that's how we've tried to do it. We think it's working. Again, it's still early in that process, but we're just in our second full cycle of it. And so we'll see where we're at the end of these 4 years.
Mick Hoffman, at the end of the third question I asked you in this segment, I looked at the clock and it was 3:06, and I said, booster clubs, how are we ever going to get through this? And I was thinking, this is going to be a long segment. As usual, your answers, so thorough and so informative, have whisked us through the first 27 minutes of this program, and we will be back on your community radio station on WIAA Primetime with the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, Mick Hoffman, when we return in about 3 minutes.
Rainier Avenue Radio.
Are you in need of new or gently used clothing? Hope's Community Closet is here to help. We offer a wide range of clothing for men, women, youth, children, and infants. Join us on the 4th Saturday of each month from 12:30 to 4 at the Silent Task Force. We're giving clothing with care, community with heart. Lovely Ladies Lemonade for sale, and shop to the sound of old school soul. Any questions? Contact Alicia Kennedy, Executive Director of Women United at 206-316-7601. 206-316-7601. Come and find the perfect outfit for you and your family. We look forward to seeing you there.
This is Brenda Charles Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. Join me every week to get information on activities and issues that impact the lives of older adults and their families. That's Seniors Matter every week on Rainier Avenue Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects. For more information, visit kingcounty.gov.
Hey, Seattle, tune in to Lidline Sports every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. What up, yo? We are back. This is Pep and the man that don't take no mess, Mr. O-P-I-S, Mr. Stevenson. What say you?
I hope you see the hat that I'm wearing right now. That's how mad I am.
I do. Man, you are angry.
I just want to make that be known.
Tune in to Lidline Sports every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Lidline Sports.
Sing with us as we fill the historic Columbia City Theater with our voices. Join Crowdsource Choir on May 23rd for a soulful, participatory night of singing. Come raise the collective vibration with us at the Columbia City Theater. Tickets at crowdsourcechoir.com.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter, Rainier Ave Radio.
Welcome back on your TV radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Juan Cotto, Rainier Avenue Radio host and personality with Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activity Association. Mick, you were talking about your son. The questions and debates that I get into with the modern athlete, the modern high school athlete, Mick, and the lectures that I receive, I'm told not to touch the creatine gummies on his desk. He's counted all of them. And I have no idea what creatine gummies are, but he's very protective of his creatine gummies and told me not to touch them this morning as he was leaving the house.
Wow. Yeah. It's amazing the stuff that's out there, and try and track what's really what's healthy. Is that Daniel pulling that out? Look at this. Man.
Oh my goodness. I just Jose Cotto from Caguas, Puerto Rico, who told me he was so poor. He told me he was so poor that he instead of wearing the Chuck Taylors, he would just paint his feet black and put a 50-cent piece on the ankle, on the outside of the ankle, to make it look like he had those shoes. But he just told me that he put a big steak in front of me every night and just said, eat this, and this will make you big. And that's all I remember. And this newfangled training. I hope that he can shave that quarter a second. I hope he can shave that quarter a second off of his 400 time, so he can get in the final round of 16. He's got some work to do. Yeah, that's exactly what it used to look like back in the day over there, that house on Hazel Street. Jose Cotto, rest in peace, my brother. But we're still doing it, and your grandson is still doing it, although in different methods. Mick, are there any currently any policy or guidance to equitable distribution of booster funds across the sports that you know of? You talked a little bit about Title IX. Looking at some of the lower profile or lower revenue schools in a district, or is there any way that and I guess this would probably be a district decision, although there's probably alumni that would want to see, for example, a Cleveland high school have different things. Is there any way that they can moderate some of that out?
Yeah, I mean, it's strictly district policy. So WASDA, which is the School Director Association, gives a lot of model policy to schools, and typically every school, a booster club, if they follow the model policy, has to be approved annually by the school board, and their books have to be available to be audited by the school district to make sure that to check in and keep up with equitable practices. Then the other piece with that is school districts can choose to provide funding. Not, sometimes they cookie cutter just X amount per student, and sometimes they, put their money into programming that is necessary or needed to enhance it and depending on situations. So some schools might get more because they have a IB program, and some schools might get more because they don't have the capacity to raise as many ASB or booster club funds. So strictly up to a school district. So, hey, Juan, going back to the creatine one, though, think about that. Of all the things that Clemente puts his time in, right, to get better at, that he's done the research, right, even though apparently you can do it pretty quick online with Daniels pulling this stuff up. But to get better, how important sports is, right? And again, I think with booster clubs, on top of that, we underutilize the passion people have for sports and activities by not promoting all our other items. I mean, you think about the information we could put out at every football game at O'Day, or the basketball game at O'Day, or the track meet at O'Day, to continue to give people information around other items of importance to the school beyond sports. And so, in an ideal world, the booster clubs will also help with that, because the passion to pay attention and put time into it, there's a way to leverage that into other aspects of the school. And I think that's where a booster club could maybe really capitalize on the opportunity of supporting the programming.
So interesting you mentioned that. I had an opportunity to sit right next to the Reverend Leslie Braxton, very, very prominent preacher here in the Seattle area, formerly at Mount Zion Church, and he is now the pastor at New Beginnings Church down in Kent, and has built a massive following down there, and certainly is a leading figure in not only the Black community here in Seattle. Leslie Braxton is a leading figure throughout many different communities, and he and I were at the El Centro de la Raza dinner last October, and we were sitting at the head table. I had to get myself in. I got my information late, of course, and got there. So I was sitting next to Reverend Braxton, and Reverend Braxton and I, we were having a conversation, and he was kind of hiding his phone. On his phone, Mick, was the University of Georgia playing the University of Alabama, which was a unbelievable contest. And we were in the middle of all of the speeches and all of the program. We were all huddled up together watching the phone, and he was holding it under the table, and we were laughing about this and trying to be as discreet as we can. And I asked him, I said, it's interesting, Reverend Braxton, in our community, sports has become so popular, and we almost pursue it like a job, and like a lot of our young kids, they are starting to they really we're not keeping the emphasis on academics. And he said to me, Juan, that's because in our community, sports was a privilege, and you had to have good grades. And I think about it from that perspective, and it was really that's one of the things that I appreciate about my wife Sarah and I. We've really made it a privilege for Clemente to participate, and I think that's one of the things that we have to focus on in our community, in our parent communities, and we really work to talk about it, and we've shared that with him, is that this is a privilege to participate in sports. And that, I love what you talked about, because the information should be available. He's just gone through the SATs. Took the SAT a couple of weeks ago. He started his college visits, and as a parent, of all the things that I feel like now I'm hanging on to as he's turning that into that final third, that 17 and 18-year-old age, and you know that you are going to miss him, but at least we've provided that foundation, and I'm hoping that parents understand just how quick that goes, and certainly so many of them do. But as Leslie Braxton said, this is it used to be a privilege. It still is a privilege, and that's where the focus needs to be. And if your grades are not up to a certain standard, and it should be a high standard, it's up to that family to make sure that that child is going to participate based on whether the standard is being hit. And I think we're all starting to realize that now. And I think that's something that you were kind of talking about with the potential with the booster clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, like with our rules, when a kid's ineligible, it doesn't mean they're off the team, right? There's certain things that get them removed from a team, but academics or eligibility, we want them to continue practicing and doing that, because what do they really want? They want the games, right? And the grind isn't nearly, I mean, it's fun for some, but for most, it's the games, the crowd's there. And, that's why when we hear about people wanting to pull their kids out of sports to get the grades, it's like, well, make them go to practice. Just don't let them play in the games. Make them watch the games, because that's the motivator for them. And then the other piece is again, how important that experience is. And you've shared this, over the last couple of years with Clemente, doing baseball, and baseball being his primary drive. And then it became football. And now he's doing some track, and how through his athletic experience, he's dealt with some real challenges. I mean, heartbreaks at times, and frustration and elation and all those things to help him. And when he's 18, 19, 20 years old and no longer coming home and telling you to stay off his desk or trying to get in line to air his complaint, he's got to figure that out on his own, right? Those skills that he learned, at home with you and going through those athletic programs are going to pay off dividends more so than we could ever imagine. And that's why these parents who come in and pull their kids out or try to rescue them from tough spots, or don't make them deal with having to identify, they're not getting to play the sport or on the team or the position they want, and they make a million excuses, or they remove them from the spot and take them out of there. What are they going to do when they're 21 in college and something happens, right? And so that kid needs to learn how to deal with that under the tutelage of their parent and not be rescued every single time. And it hurts, but that's what we sign up for as a parent, is to get them to where they can do that on their own. And they, in turn, you just gave, props to your dad for, that his mentality's now down into Clemente, that he passed through you. And that's the role of a parent, not to make it easy for their kid, but to support them in the hard times and enjoy and celebrate what comes of it.
Daniel, I texted you my shameless plug. Are you able to pull that up? When you were able to pull that up, I sent you a text, and I wanted Mick to see that, because we'll come back to that in a second. And Mick, those are very, very, very wise words, and those are words that I hope that when people get a chance to view this, that they really take that to heart. Especially parents, and I'm sure that you and I. It was when I was coaching at Highline. A dad came up to me and he apologized. He apologized to me, and with all of the things you're trying to juggle, the dad said, "I'm so sorry," and I said, "Sir, please don't apologize, because this is your child." And I would expect you to become emotional. I would expect you to become upset over your child. I wish I had more parents who would come and yell at me. And it was just amazing how the kids, in a certain way, they had to defend for themselves. There wasn't as much parent involvement. But when he said to me, "Hey, I really need to talk with you, Coach. I have a problem," I was like, "Please don't apologize, because I would expect you to have a problem."
Yeah.
Because
let's talk about it. Yeah.
Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. And that's it was wonderful to see that. So parents out there, the most prominent role you have is to support your child, and certainly coaches can and athletic administrators and referees and even teammates can have a huge sway on that. But I tell you, these kids really work hard for their parents as well.
Yeah, and the lessons they learn in a supported system where they're allowed to fail and succeed publicly, like those are lifetime skills. And it doesn't have to be a decimating experience. But man, they can transition that into regular life for the rest of their life if it's allowed to happen. But if you come scoop them up and protect them and put them in that bubble, when you're not there to be the bubble, right, then what happens? And I mean, our daughter's 35 years old, mother of two, divorced about a year ago, just bought a house. Her ex-husband lives right down the road in his own house. Great relationship still, with two separate personal lives now. And she just got riffed as an assistant principal in her school district because they had a double levy failure, right? So what did she do? Of course, she's mad, but then she needed to come up with a game plan. So she immediately went to trying to figure out what she's going to do next. Like, what do I do when I get hit with some controversy or trouble hits me? And, you know, she played 1 year of college volleyball before she hung it up to graduate early. And, you know, it's not that her mother taught her that. It's not that I taught her that. It's that she learned those kind of skills and that resilience through her career as an athlete up through her first 20 years of her life. And we were just there for the ride, not to make it easy for her, but to support her as she went through the ups and downs of that. So now as a 35-year-old woman, she's able to handle that. And we can put our arm around her and say, hey, you know, we got you, but you need to figure this out. And guess what? She did. So there's a lifetime of lessons to be learned at that 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old age if we allow them to do it. And what do the booster clubs do? They make sure that opportunity stays available to all kids. That's what their job is. That's available to all kids, not just the one program that they're dying to support.
Daniel, you say you have my shameless plug up. There we go, Mick.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah, there we go, Mick. We have completed it. This is about a 7-hour interview I did with Clemente back in December during the winter, and I was able to take those stories and put together a book on his championship season at O'Day. The foreword from the book is from Coach Monty Kohler.
Wow.
And Mick, the introduction from the book, From the Depths, is by Jason Brown, who was obviously he was an all-state football player for O'Day last year. Loves Clemente. And he said that now it was for the first time in his life he really could identify with that story. He went down to Arizona State as a high school All-American and the one of the top recruits from Arizona State. And he said that he learned very, very quickly on that Cam Scattaboo is for real. Jason Brown told us that he's never been the 6th, 7th string at anything. And he realized 2 months in that, wow, he had a lot of work to do as a Division I athlete. And he's gonna share his story at some point with us here on Rainier Avenue Radio. But he wrote the introduction to the story, and was really, really proud of what Clemente was able to accomplish last year and the O'Day High School team. So, and I want to thank you, because if you could see that in the small lettering on the back panel of the book, there's a quote from a guy named Mick Hoffman.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
A lot of the lessons that you've just discussed, Clemente kind of shares in that book.
Wow.
But it was really great catching up with Jason when he was in town about 6 weeks ago, and he said that it was the first time ever he's ever been that low on the depth chart.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, go from the top of the world to fighting for survival. I mean, you know, and the people who make it through that, right? He's going to do that when he gets his next job. So good for him. Good for you guys.
What innovative solutions or models have you seen that can help bridge the equity gap created by varying booster club capacities between schools? Are there any new ways that we can look and see if we can help bring the equity for some of these different programs?
You know, as they're fighting through some of this funding stuff in Olympia, I'm hoping that they start to look at extended day sports, athletics, and activities as part of the general ed. I mean, you think of all the stuff we talk about on this show. You know, the AD, my first year, he stood up and said, I run the most effective intervention program in my school as the athletic director. That should be funded. And that's one where if they're going to start looking at that, like how do you do that? Because they fund schools off FTE. Maybe they look at it more by a need basis. I mean, they have plenty of data to show year in, year out financial needs and participation numbers. So I would hope that down the road we can get our legislators to take a look at funding this opportunity so it doesn't become a club situation where the most talented and the most wealthy get to participate. The other 200,000 are out. So I think that's probably potentially the most innovative one out there in the short term. There's a lot of online stuff that's going on now where people are able to donate small amounts. It doesn't have to be big amounts, and then also going out and we've seen it with the Jordans and that where they team up with some schools. Typically, those are the schools that maybe have high poverty and really good athletes. And so how can what that does, especially in like say Seattle schools or Portland when Jefferson High School got that kind of partnership, well, then maybe Portland Public Schools can differentiate their funding to some of the other schools that aren't receiving that kind of outside impact. And so you take the dollars that are available within the school district and you differentiate where they go to, not just based on the raw numbers, but on need, because outside influences are helping some of your other kids already. So everybody's getting, essentially the love they need.
Mick, I saw my good friend Darby Haskins up at the track meet up in Shoreline, and obviously I worked for him for 3 years up at Nathan Hale, and just remember how much fun we used to have up there, and the conversations I would get into with the athletic director of the Nathan Hale Raiders. And it's interesting because Darby would sit down and just look like he was just coming out of a meat grinder, hair kind of blown back, and he would just rub his head and he would say, Juan, the athletic director's job at high school boils down to 3 B's: buses, budgets, and basketball. and we would laugh, and he would tell us all of the stories about trying to put that together, put a program together up for the students and the families and the community up in North Seattle that Nathan Hale represents. And I think about those days, and I think about this thing because he did such a unique role. He did such a unique role and such a unique job of pulling it all together. But you and I both know, going back to the 3 B's, that the athletic director's job is already already out of balance and work-life balance, and trying to pull all of that together. What support and what role can we have for school administrators, specifically athletic directors, to play? I mean, like he said, trying to get the buses and the budgets and all the other sports and schedules together. Are there ways that we can make it easier on athletic directors to come up with creative ways to fund their programs?
Yeah, in some of our schools, that ADs are, I go down to Silas every once in a while. Johnny Lee's the AD down there, so he invites me down to some games, and you go in his office after school, and he's got a whole food program set up for kids. Because a lot of them don't have cars or the ability to get home and back, so they're hanging around school afterwards. So they've got a safe place, do their homework, play games, hang out, whatever they have set up that day. Same time he's feeding them, and then it's also developing that relationship. And I think, again, those are things that if booster clubs can assume more of that kind of role or do the providing, so ADs aren't having to pay for it out of their own pocket to do it or have to go out and hustle to get the resources, then the ADs our ADs work hard. An AD that sticks around, they're putting in, a 50-hour week's a low week, and they love kids. And so they're going to find ways to keep their kids out of trouble. The most dangerous time for a kid isn't Friday night at 10 p.m. It's from 2 to 6 during the week, because most traditional working families are working at that time. They're unsupervised, right? The statistics show number 1 time for juvenile crime, number 1 time for drug use, number 1 time for teen pregnancies. All that happens at that 2 to 6 time during the week. And so if schools can find a way, that's what makes sports and activities, drama, music, what have you, so important, is they're in healthy activities with healthy kids, making healthy choices. And so I think that's where booster clubs can really, really help provide the means for that. The ADs will still find a way to get it done. They'll put it in the work.
Looking forward, what changes or improvements would you like to see in how booster clubs operate to ensure both excellence and fairness to the athletes and athletic programs in high school in Washington State?
Yeah, first I want to see them protect themselves. So become that 501c3, put a board together, have the financial accountability within that thing, get your insurance. Like that's first and foremost. That's a lot of work. Might take a year right there. Then go out and recruit freshman parents, sophomore parents. So when that senior, and then the other one is hopefully we can get them to support all programs, right? Like raise the money for the things in your kid's program, the whatever activities your kid is in, but also make sure there's enough to take care of everybody, because then it doesn't become a us and them within the school, because the energy of that is going to be magnified if we're all working together. So band boosters, right, they crush it. So in big band schools, they crush it, they do it, but even they are typically part of the greater one, because guess what? They want access to that field at halftime. So the football team has value to them because it's a place for them to practice their show every single Friday when they go out to compete on Saturday. So I think that's a way, and it brings community together within a school that way. Not only resources are amplified, but it brings the community together and people understand each other better.
Mick, in the last couple of minutes, where are you heading for the next couple of weeks? Do you have any plans to go across the state, and who will you see and what will you see?
Let's see. Saturday night, I drove up to Chelan to be with superintendents for 2 days. Drove down to Battleground today for an emergency dental appointment. Got back up to Renton this afternoon. Here right now, we have our Hall of Fame at Lumen Field tomorrow. And then from there, I'm driving tomorrow night. I'm driving to Spokane to be with the school business officials till Friday. And then I'm going to drive back home to Southwest Washington and introduce myself to my family again.
There you go.
That's what I got in the next week.
Those emergency dental appointments, I'll never forget, I broke a tooth and I was in Olympia. The dentist looked at my mouth and he said to me, can you come back in 1 hour? I'm going to go to lunch and I'll fix you up after you get done. I was like, no, I'm in so much pain. He goes, you'll be okay. Just come back in an hour. And thank goodness he took care of that. So bless you on that emergency dental appointment.
I heard the worst words you can hear from a dentist today as he was fixing the tooth that was the problem, say, oh no. Yeah. So here we go. So anyway, got through it. We're good.
He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, Mick Hoffman, and he comes here every other Tuesday to meet with me and sit down and discuss issues going on with our students in the high school athletics throughout the state of Washington. We appreciate that so much. I'm Juan Cotto on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world. See you next week.
Yeah, congrats on the book. That's a huge one. And Daniel, out of the park with the graphics today. Amazing.
He is something else.